All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today on this AppHacks, the Skuid series, where we talk about how you navigate the seas of application development. My name is Sean Allen. I'm with Skuid, in charge of marketing here, and I'm joined today by Geraldine Gray, CEO of Indium. Say hello, Geraldine.
Hello.
All right, fantastic. So the topic that we're going to be talking about today is how do you break into the world of being a Salesforce admin? And I think one of the ways to launch into that, Geraldine, would be to kind of give us your origin story, because as the CEO of Indium, a Salesforce consultancy, and being a Salesforce MVP for over a decade, right, gives you a whole lot of background and a whole lot of credibility into helping folks break into this market. Love to understand your story and where you began.
So hi, thank you, Sean, for having me today. And I'm absolutely delighted to be here. And I want to say thank you to everybody who's joining us. And I commend all of you for taking the time in your day. As somebody who's saying no to lots of things right now, I realize that your attendance speaks volumes to your commitment of learning, and I hope that we're able to share. So my background is that I moved to America in June 2000. So what's that, 21 years ago? I was married to a chap who came over from England. He was implementing Salesforce for a big company. He didn't have an admin. So 21 years ago, they really didn't have Salesforce, right? It was a very, very, very new technology. He didn't have an admin. I had worked with CRM. I did a little bit of admin for him. That sort of turned into other people asking me to do admin when I graduated from college over here. And things with him didn't work out, but Salesforce has served me really, really well. So I started as a consultant at a very small boutique firm. Then I moved to a slightly larger, less boutique firm, ended up working at Appirio, which was known in those days for being the leader of technology. So we would always be the people who did the first things first. Oftentimes Salesforce might buy a product, the product would get rolled into the Salesforce platform, and we would be the first people developing on that product, which was quite entertaining because usually when companies got bought, the first thing they did was actually go on vacation. So you'd be in the middle of a holiday period for them while you're trying to implement live chat. True story. I worked at Appirio, always first. I worked at Appirio for a few years and absolutely loved it. I wanted to be home more so that we could start a family. It's not a secret. And as I looked at what might allow me to be home more, I took a job with a Google-funded startup. It's fair to say they didn't like me and I didn't like them much either. I lasted 89 days. And I knew from day one that it probably wasn't going to work out. And I certainly knew from day 7 it wasn't going to work out. So on day 89, when they gave me the paperwork, I wasn't surprised and I wasn't desperately upset. The next week, people started asking me to do Salesforce, and that was Indium. Our first customer was a customer in Houston. They wrote a check for $15,000, which is a huge amount of money for your first customer. And then our second customer actually was Salesforce. And they remained our customer for about 7 or 8 years. So here we are, nearly 10 years into Indium, and we're still rolling. Very much a customer-led company. Most of our business is referrals, and we do good work for nice customers.
Fantastic. I appreciate you going through that, Geraldine. It's I think it's a similar path that we see a lot of folks go through, which is, wouldn't call it accidentally, but it is, people didn't set out to go down this path, right? And another thing that I chuckled about, which hasn't changed at all, is that being in the Salesforce ecosystem is not a boring place to be. Right, it is. They're always extending what they consider to be their core products. There's this huge partner ecosystem, and the customer challenges that you get to face on a day-to-day basis are certainly interesting. Question for you is, based on your experience, both personal, right, and how you got to what we just were talking about, as well as from a company perspective, what is the fastest and cleanest way to break into the Salesforce ecosystem as an admin and kind of work yourself up?
Yeah. So I think, let's say you've taken, let me write my own user story for a moment. Okay, so let's say you've done a few of the basic admin trails and you have worked in a business B2B environment. So I think the next thing you do is you look to see what skill set do I have that people are looking for that can be adjacent to Salesforce. So for example, perhaps I'm a data analyst who's pretty handy with working out how things work. Perhaps I am in customer service and it would be a really good fit, or I'm on the help desk, right? It would be a really good fit for me to sort of slip into being the person who also, I help you with Salesforce, as well as, I run your help desk. I think that if you're already working in an organization and they're implementing Salesforce, get yourself on the project as a super user. And bring value to that project. And then by taking your adjacent skills, you can meld them with Salesforce. You can make yourself more available to the Salesforce team. And yes, you're going to end up having 2 jobs, but hey, most people have 2 jobs, so there it is. But take those skills and then meld them with what you're already good at. It will make you a far more attractive candidate than somebody who has never done Salesforce but wants to be a Salesforce admin.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, from a kind of a key characteristic to focus on is that, is that adjacent focus, things that you're already doing really well that could extend very nicely over into picking up the new skills of Salesforce and going on there. Any other key characteristics to highlight there?
Well, I tell you're going to have to be pretty resilient, right? You're going to get a lot of no's before you get that single yes, or maybe you'll get 2 yeses, maybe you get 3 yeses. You should probably set up your dev org so that you can manage your own job hunt. It'll be very helpful for you. And it will teach you how to set up a schema and an org. And so it will give you a little bit of hands-on experience. But yeah, you're going to have to be resilient because you're going to get a lot of no's and you're going to get a lot of nothings. So if you are applying for a role for which you're not qualified, which, let's face it, if you've never done the job before, you're highly unlikely to be qualified for that job. You're going to get a lot of non-responses. So please be resilient and no whining. Just kind of expect that there's going to be a lot of people looking, to do what you're looking to do, and you're going to have to find a way to either slide into that role or make yourself stand out.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially given the breadth of the Salesforce ecosystem as we talked about it, right? I mean, I started earlier in my career as employee like 350 at Salesforce as a technical salesperson out in the field. And even then it was a daunting landscape to go in and talk about. And today, with all the acquisitions and all the organic and inorganic growth that Salesforce has gone through, it's just impossible for any one person to know it. So honing your skills in a particular area makes a lot of sense, especially, adjacent to what you already know, getting that dev org, diving in, learning a little bit, and then getting good at hearing no, and just keeping coming back at that. I think that's really, really important. What other things and anything else for folks to keep in mind as they attempt to break into this space?
Yeah, so I was really thinking about something that appeals to us. So we have pre-COVID, we were very focused on the local area. Post-COVID, our consultants are everywhere. Everybody literally coast to coast and around the globe. However, for your first role, I think it's really important if you can find a role that's local, because that makes you instantly more available. Whether it's more available because you're on the same time zone, or more available because you're able to be in the office if that's your thing, not be in the office if that's your thing, that's fine too. But going for a local company is going to make you more attractive, because I believe people like to hire locally. We're in Houston. Houston people like to do business with Houston people. It's just the way it is. Dallas folks like to do business with Dallas folks. I only have one customer in Dallas, right? We have lots of customers in Houston. Folks in San Francisco don't care so much. They'll do business with you anywhere. But there's definitely a sort of a local-centric demand, and being the person who is that Salesforce tentative admin who's got that adjacent skill set is going to make you way more attractive than somebody who's remote. Remote onboarding can be hard doing a job you've never done before at a company you've never worked at before, right? That's setting yourself up for a very steep climb. So if you can find a company locally that's looking, I think that would make you a very attractive candidate. I do a lot of snooping on LinkedIn for, and you know who you are if you've seen me look at your LinkedIn profile. So we're often looking for admins for our own customers, where we think, okay, we can find somebody who doesn't know Salesforce for a lot of hands-on work, but has been learning it. And we have a customer who's in a particular industry, say, and they're looking for an admin. We always sort of think, okay, well, we could take on board that admin. They could work for us for a year or two, and then we could put them over to one of our customers, it will help us because now our customer has a great admin, but it helps the customers as well because they oftentimes don't know what they're looking for. So if you see me snooping on your LinkedIn profile, it's because you have something that I think is very desirable to some of our customers.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm curious, as you look around, is that customer centricity, right, and understanding the workflow that Salesforce is trying to model. Is that something that you look for in folks that you're trying to bring on board the company? Not necessarily with a depth of Salesforce knowledge, because that's something that obviously can be learned over time, but somebody that has either skills in a particular vertical or skills in a particular discipline that they can bring because they understand what people are actually trying to get Salesforce to do for them.
Yeah, so very much so. So we have customers in manufacturing, and I'm always really interested in people that have done sales ops, customer service, worked in the manufacturing industry, are based in Houston, and have got their Salesforce cert. Maybe they haven't got their first Salesforce cert, but they've got some trailheads in there, and they're part of a community where they're looking for their next role, and they want that to be in Salesforce. If it's not necessarily in a particular industry that we operate within, we're also always looking for people who are analysts. I think that you can teach people Salesforce, but you cannot teach people to be smart. Mm-hmm. So if you find somebody who has an analyst mindset, maybe they've touched Tableau before it belonged to Salesforce. That's the kind of perfect person to bring into the fold, because they may not know Salesforce, and that's okay if you already have a Salesforce team, but they know how data works, they know how data is structured, they understand some of the demands that businesses are going to be looking for and what they're expecting out of their data, and they're probably going to be pretty forward thinking just because they've been doing object modeling and data modeling for their existing customers. And when I'm thinking about what would make me special if I'm the admin who's looking for a role, mm-hmm. We have this phrase that we called ICP, which is ideal customer profile, right? So what does my ideal customer look like? And there's this list that marketing and sales will put together for an ideal customer. And I was really thinking about if I was an admin, or if I want to be admin, right? I want to break into the Salesforce world, put together what your ideal employer looks like. And also, what do you look like as an ideal employee? Because, I mean, everybody wants to work for a company where you get free snacks and ping pong and, get to work from home whatever days you feel like it, and everybody has flexible hours and, I don't know, 25 days a year vacation, whatever it is, let's think European. We all want that job, but that's the reality of those jobs are very few and far between, especially when it's going to be your first job. So think about, what does your ideal employee and ideal employer look like? And consider that it's not going to be static, right? It's going to change. It will change from what you do for your first role. It's going to be different when you're looking for your second role. It's going to be different 10 years from now or 8 years from now when you're looking for your third role. So what does that ideal employer and ideal employee profile look like? And even if you can define your ideal employer profile, is that going to be a culture where you can thrive, or is it going to be a culture where you're going to survive? Yeah. That's really important as well. So, I talked about my 89-day tenure at a startup. To say it was chaotic is a underestimation. And I can't do well in chaos. I have 5-year-old twins. That's enough chaos for me these days. So yeah, two small children is quite chaotic.
I sympathize. I have a pair of 9-year-old twins, so I hear you on that. It
does get easier. Let me say that. I didn't believe people. I'd never believe them when they were like the first few years. I'm like, you're lying. But it does actually get easier. Although they talk back and they roll their eyes at you.
100%. I went up for lunch a little bit earlier, and they were singing the Hamilton soundtrack to one another off in a corner, which was pretty spectacular. So
that's cute. Mine are just like persecuting each other with Frozen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've been through that phase for sure. So we've talked a lot about breaking into this, and frankly, in some areas, I feel like we haven't painted a very flattering picture. Right? It's hard. Be resilient. Right? There's a huge ecosystem to get into. There's all of this kind of stuff. So let's talk about the other side of that. What's the individual opportunity in the long term? Right? I mean, you've lived it for quite some time. What is that? Why would somebody want to break into this? What is that opportunity?
I think that, as I said, that you can if somebody is smart, you can teach them Salesforce, but you can't teach them to be smart.
Right.
Where I've seen some people have really good success is not just by becoming the admin in their company, but then by going on to become a business analyst within their organization. And then they take the Salesforce skills, because now they understand business and sales ops or service ops, whichever it is that they've been servicing. Mm-hmm. And then they take those skills and then they move them over. Again, they're moving adjacent, right? So they're moving to what's next. And what's next is that sometimes they become a business analyst who knows Salesforce. Then they can take that role and they can maybe move to the PMO. Now they know Salesforce, they understand how technology works, they understand what it takes to be part of a technology project. And so it's not just about having basic Salesforce skills, but it's also thinking about where can I go in the future, because you may not want to always be a Salesforce admin. And Salesforce admins in companies can get very pigeonholed, because once you're good, it's very hard to replace you.
That's right.
So always sort of think about, okay, what else can I do beyond just being an admin? When I find folks who simply want to be an admin, I always sort of think, well, you can learn how to be an admin once you get your foot in the door, you get that first job, you can learn how to be an admin. What are you going to do for your next career move? So you actually have a career rather than just going from being admin to bigger admin, to a larger admin, right? Maybe you're going to be the platform owner, and then you're going to move over and you're going to own not just the Salesforce platform, but other technologies. Perhaps you're going to own the ERP as well. Because a lot of people do not just have Salesforce, they have other products alongside it.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And for me, one of the things that I think is an amazing opportunity is somebody that's gone through, bringing their skills, doing Salesforce, and then making it work inside of an organization. What you learn there is how to apply technology to human problems, right? Being able to take a look at what is this organization trying to do, right? Break it down to the fundamental problem. What am I trying to solve, right? It's not I'm trying to get opportunity data into a system. It is that I am trying to increase the speed at which I am able to bring revenue into my business, right? So what is the fastest way for us to do that, right? What is the fastest way for us to do this other thing? And being able to take that kind of human-centered approach to what is that problem and how do I use technology to solve it, and doing it with a business platform that is as ubiquitous as Salesforce is. I think that's a true skill to bring forward and helps you elevate your game throughout the rest of your career.
Yeah, absolutely. And once you have those skills, no one can take them away. Mm-hmm. Right? Your Salesforce skills might get a little dusty because perhaps you don't keep up with all the releases, and maybe you don't do all your exams on time. You might lose a certification after a few years. But those other skills that you've learned as being part of a business, the ability to write user stories, the ability not just solution them, right? Because that's an entirely different skill set, but the ability to write user stories and to understand the problems that people are having. That's very different from being able to click your way around Salesforce to create a report or to write a workflow or a process builder or such like.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we at Skuid find our customers. That's the thing that distances them is the thinking about the problem that they're trying to solve and then going about using the technology to solve it. So as we come up to the close, and when I'll go through and announce the two raffle winners. At the end, I'd love it, Geraldine, if you would give us kind of your top 3 takeaways from this conversation. Your top 3 pieces of advice.
Can I have 4?
You absolutely can have 4.
Okay. So first of all, I'd say think adjacent. What can I do where I already have a skill set that I can apply this to? Then I would say think about your ideal employee profile. That's you. Okay. So what does it look like? How can I make myself the most desirable person to hire? Be resilient, no whining. You're going to get a lot of no's before you get a yes. And you may get super lucky and get a couple of yeses and you have a choice. But you've got to be resilient in this path. And then also be reasonable and realistic. When people hire you as an admin, they are hiring you to do a job. They are not anticipating that you're going to show up and you're not going to know how to do the work. Right? So you're going to have to work your ass off in order to get your foot in the door, and you're really going to have to work your backside off when you get in there. So be reasonable and realistic, and just know that there's going to be a lot of learning that goes on in that first role.
Yeah, yep, that makes a lot of sense. Anything else?
I think also just remember that it doesn't really matter what other people are doing and what other stories you hear or see, whether it's on Reddit or Glassdoor or Upwork or any of these other sort of platforms where they have Salesforce discussions and roles out there. You have to do what's right for you. Mm-hmm. So you do you, and do the best that you can. Be the best that you can at doing you. Don't worry about what other people are doing, what other people have got. You do you. You might also want to think about if you want to be a participant in some of these programs where you pay to join them, and if you are, then I would think really carefully about if you're going to pay to join a program, you want to know what are the numbers on the other side of it. What's the outcome?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. I think we're in a very, it's you hear people talk about this so much that everybody's so sick of hearing it. But in this time that we are in, it is actually a very unique job market. A lot of people are going through, I wouldn't call them job crises. It's actually they've been doing something for long enough. They have been able to take the time, during this, this crazy period that we've been in, and assess, this isn't where I want to be. And what I want to be doing is this, right? And that's kind of the impetus of this conversation to get, as a whole. So, anyway, it's really interesting to watch. And so I love what you're talking about as far as, think longer term and think about yourself and what is the right move for you, and, think about culture and all of those kind of things.
Yeah. And, as a remote employee, if you do take a role where you're going to be remote, you're going to have to put in 5 times more effort to stand out from the crowd, because simply you're not there, and it's hard when people aren't there in your face. It is really hard to, unless they've already proven how brilliant they are, it's really hard to, kind of trust somebody that you've never met to be on your project, or trust somebody you've never met to do some work. So that's a challenge of remote work. And as an employer, it's also really hard to ensure that every remote person feels like, that they're the same as anybody who might happen to be in an office. Some people have no offices, some people have satellite offices, some people have one big office with a bunch of people remote. One of the things we've done is we make sure that when there's announcements, they go to the entire team all at once. So if you're in the office, you don't get sort of a sneak preview of what's coming. And we wait to make sure that everybody gets it, because it's aggravating when you're the last person. You feel like you're the last person to know. Yep. So we're really careful about that.
Yeah, we've spent a bunch of time moving the culture at Skuid to be a remote first culture, even though we have a large collection of folks at our corporate headquarters. But considering everybody, because it's actually been wonderful to diversify and bring in folks from just anywhere that happen to not only fit the culture but also the role and the need and all of that kind of stuff, and it's really built a wonderful business. Well, sorry, go ahead.
So I was going to say, years ago, somebody complained that their parents never wrote to them, and they got a postcard and it said, "Write and you will be written to." And the same applies for people who are local and remote, right? So I had somebody say, "Well, we just feel like there's not enough communication anymore now that we're all remote." And I said, "Okay, that's really interesting, because I dropped a line where I said hello to 8 people. 4 of you never replied, and 2 of you took a whole day to get back to me. And all I said was, 'Hello, how are you?'" So this communication goes both ways. It can't come from, whoever you perceive as being your boss or the CEO or, a leader in a team. Everybody is responsible for putting this out there.
Yep. Totally agree. So want to bring our live stream to a close. Geraldine, I so much appreciate your time, your investment in getting some really thoughtful and profound answers to some of these questions to help guide folks on their journey to becoming a Salesforce admin. A quick aside announcement from a raffle winner perspective. We pulled a name out of a hat, and that name is Andy V. Thank you so much for your sign up into our monthly newsletter, Skuid Word. But to close everything, and just hang tight, Andy, because that email will be coming to you as a $50 Amazon gift card. We were joking before this that that might have been better suited 18 months ago to invest in Amazon instead of as a gift card. But I hope that hits the spot. Again, Geraldine, thank you so much for your time and for everybody's attention. And have a great and wonderful rest of your day.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks.